Good morning, champions. I hope you had a nice long weekend. We're going to start off this week for reading, learning about plot. And I have in the topic plot mountain because that is the strategy that we're going to use. So we're going to focus on fiction. Fiction stories have a natural rise and fall in a story. And I'm going to explain to you what that means. Well, there's a starting point. It builds up, gets to the turning point, and then it comes back down, and then you have your ending. So it almost looks like it's a mountain. We're going to go over some definitions. These definitions will be on every day, so in case you forget. So let's start with the first one. The definition of plot. Plot is the organized pattern or sequence of events that make up a story. Every plot is made up of a series of incidents that are related to one another. So everything happens for a reason, right? And everything falls into place. So the beginning of the story is called the exposition, but we can also just call that the beginning. What happens in the beginning? This usually occurs at the beginning of a short story. Here the characters are introduced. We also learn about the setting. Most importantly, we're introduced the main problem. So some important things are setting, characters. Think about when you guys read your fluency for one quick minute. Most times, even that first minute, you're able to come up with the characters and the setting, which is really important. Sometimes the main problem as well is introduced. The next part of plot mountain is the rising action, and you'll see in the description here, it's this part that looks like jagged parts, like it's building up. So rising action, this part of the story begins to develop the conflicts or the problems. A building of interest or suspense occurs. You almost want to say, what is going to happen? That's a good story. It makes you want to read more. The climax, most important part, is when you reach the top. That is the turning point in a story. Usually the main character comes face to face with a conflict. The main character will change in some way. So the climax is the most important part, just like the top of a mountain. If you were climbing it, that would be your goal, right? You want to reach the top. The next part, once you reach the top, there's only place you can go is down. So the falling action, all loose ends of a plot are tied up. The conflict and climax are taken care of. So everything starts to fall into place. And finally, the resolution is the end of a story. So the story comes to a reasonable ending. This is the end. Most stories have an ending. Usually they're for good reasons, but the authors usually don't leave you hanging. So those are the 5 parts to Plot Mountain. So I'm going to have us practice using Plot Mountain. So look at the directions. Below are the main components of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. That's a very famous kind of fairy tale. If you're not too familiar with it, it's okay. We're going to go over it. Place each component where it belongs on plot diagram by placing the number on Plot Mountain. So I'm going to go over that with you. So these 8 steps are not in order. We have to put them in order, okay? So I'm going to read them to you, and then we're going to go back and put them on, I'll scroll up and we can put them on Plot Mountain. Number 1, she tries all 3 bears' porridge, and then she tries all of their chairs, breaking Baby Bear's chair. Number 2, Goldilocks runs away from the cabin and never goes back again. 3, she decides to sleep, so she tries all the beds and falls asleep in Baby Bear's bed. Number 4, Mama, Papa, and Baby Bear notice that someone has eaten their porridge and broke their chairs. 5, Goldilocks stumbles upon a cabin where the owners were not home and goes inside. 6, Goldilocks runs down the stairs and out the door. 7, Mama, Papa, and Baby Bear return home. 8, the bears find Goldilocks asleep in Baby Bear's bed, causing her to scream help. So again, those were not in order. So what we're going to do is put them in order. So I'm going to write them in order at the top here. And we're going to cross them off as we go. So let's see what happened first. First would be number 5, Goldilocks stumbles upon a cabin where the owners were not home. Then what does she do in the house? First thing, she tries all of their porridge, and then she tries all their chairs, and she breaks the chairs. Number 3, She decides to sleep, so she tries all their beds and falls asleep in Baby Bear's bed. Number 7, Mama, Papa, Baby Bear come home. Number 4, Mama, Papa, Baby Bear notice that someone has eaten their porridge and broken the chairs. Number 8, the bears find Goldilocks asleep in Baby Bear's bed, causing her to scream, "Help." Next would be Goldilocks runs down the stairs and out the door. And number 2 would be Goldilocks runs away from the cabin and never goes back. So I put them in order. Now what we need to do is put them on Plot Mountain. Okay, so let's talk about which one would be at the beginning. Well, the beginning would be number 5, where it talks about Goldilocks and how she enters the house that doesn't belong to her. Now this next part, we need to find out which of these is the climax, and then everything that comes before the climax would be rising actions. So the climax for me was step 8, when the bears find out who's in their house. They see her sleeping in the bed. So 1, 3, 7, and 4 are all going to be rising actions. They're building your suspense, right? Even when the bears come home. Falling action was that Goldilocks gets up and gets out of the bed, screams help, and finally what does she do? She leaves and never returns. So that is the end of the story. That's kind of how Plot Mountain works. So you're going to start with the beginning. I would figure out what the climax is and then kind of work backwards. And then you can go back forwards again to figure out the ending. Notice how this one ended very quickly. Didn't have many falling actions. So your assignment is going to be to listen to the story Brave Irene, and this is on StorylineOnline.net, and you're going to fill out Plot Mountain. So what I would do on your paper, you don't have to write all of these things, but I would definitely draw the beginning, draw the start of your mountain, the end, and the end of your mountain. So if you draw something like this, you can always refer back. I would put B, beginning, R, A, rising action, C, climax, falling action, and the resolution to help you. But you're just going to write short little snippets about what's happening. You do not have to write complete sentences. You can do phrases. I would like to see at least 2 rising actions. At least. You have more, that's great. And there needs to be at least 1 falling action, but if you have more than 1 falling action, that's great too. Alright, so if you're confused, you can message me on Dojo. Just try your best and we'll review this tomorrow. Thanks, champions!